I was the quiet neighbor they all ignored, so I used my Ring doorbell footage to expose how the HOA president stole $200K in dues to fund her secret gambling addiction. Okay, I need to tell you what happened because I still don't know how to feel about it. The first time I reported missing mail, they laughed. It was a Tuesday in March. I'd been expecting a certified letter from my late mother's estate lawyer, documents finalizing the transfer of her small savings account, but it never arrived. I checked with the postal carrier, who confirmed it was delivered to Sage Canyon's central mailbox cluster at 10:17 a.m. By 2 p.m., it was gone. I mentioned it at the HOA meeting that evening, a small gathering in the clubhouse, mostly retirees sipping iced tea. "Oh, Elena," chuckled Marjorie Whitmore, our HOA president, waving a manicured hand. "You're always so observant. Probably just misfiled it." A few neighbors nodded. One muttered, "She's paranoid since her mom passed." I didn't argue. I just went home and checked my Ring doorbell footage. I'd installed it after a string of package thefts last year, not because I ordered much, but because I liked knowing who came to my door. That night, I scrolled back to 10:15 a.m. There it was. Marjorie Whitmore, impeccable in linen pants and pearls, walking past the mailboxes. She glanced around and slipped something into her oversized tote bag. Not a letter. A thick manila envelope. My envelope. I saved the clip. Didn't confront her, didn't post it, just watched. Over the next 2 weeks, I noticed more oddities. Late-night SUVs idling outside the HOA office, Marjorie making weekly bank runs in a black Mercedes with tinted windows, unexplained landscaping invoices for $12,000. We had no new plants. Then came the notice. Due to rising costs, HOA dues will increase by 25% effective June 1st. $200K in annual dues from 80 households. All funneled through Marjorie's personal LLC, Sage Canyon Management. I dug deeper. As a data archivist, I knew how to follow money. I filed a public records request for HOA financials. Got denied confidential business operations. So I turned to my neighbors. Mrs. Chen, 78, whispered over azaleas. "My water bill doubled last month, but I barely use it." Mr. Patel, retired engineer. "They billed me for emergency roof repairs. My roof's fine." And then there was the gambling. I spotted it by accident. While reviewing nighttime footage of Marjorie's car leaving the complex at 3 a.m., I zoomed in on her passenger seat. On the dashboard, a neon-lit app glowing on her phone, BetMGM. I cross-referenced her license plate with casino parking logs publicly available in Arizona. She'd been at Desert Diamond Casino every Thursday night for 6 months, always alone, always leaving with less than she came with. One night, I saw her arguing with a man in a hoodie outside the HOA office. He handed her a flash drive. She handed him an envelope of cash. That's when I knew. This wasn't just embezzlement. It was addiction, and she was using our money to feed it. I didn't go to the police, not yet, because people like Marjorie don't crumble from evidence alone. They crumble when their audience turns against them. And the annual HOA meeting was in 3 days. I had a plan. The morning of the meeting, Marjorie slid a note under my door. "Stop digging, Elena, or you'll regret it." So I did the one thing she never expected. I invited every resident to live stream the meeting directly to their phones. The note under my door that morning was typed, not handwritten, on HOA letterhead. "Stop digging, Elena, or you'll regret it." No signature, but I recognized Marjorie's font. Tierramond, size 12. Exactly what she used for all official notices. I took a photo, saved it to my encrypted drive, and went about my day as if nothing happened. But inside, my resolve hardened. Threats meant she was scared, and scared people make mistakes. I spent the afternoon finalizing my plan. As a data archivist, I'd learned one truth. Information is power, but only when shared with the right audience. Marjorie had spent years cultivating an image of pristine competence, hosting wine tastings, organizing charity drives, always dressed in pastels like a Stepford wife. She'd convinced our neighbors she was indispensable, but I knew better. I created a private group chat titled Sage Canyon Truth and added 12 residents, those who'd quietly complained about bills, repairs, or strange activity. Mrs. Chen, Mr. Patel, the young couple who'd been fined $500 for unapproved patio furniture. I didn't share evidence yet, just asked, "Will you be at the meeting tonight?" All said yes. Then I did something bolder. Using a free live streaming app, I set up my phone on a tripod in the clubhouse corner, disguised as a community recording for absent residents. I tested the feed on my laptop. Clear audio, wide-angle view, perfect. At 6:45 p.m., I arrived early, wearing a simple navy dress and carrying a tablet. Marjorie was already there, arranging name cards and pouring sparkling water into crystal glasses. She barely glanced at me. "Elena," she said coolly, "try not to disrupt things tonight. We have important business." "I wouldn't dream of it," I replied sweetly. By 7 p.m., the room filled. 60 residents, mostly retirees, a few young families, settled into folding chairs. Marjorie took the podium, radiant in cream silk, her silver hair perfectly coiffed. "Welcome, neighbors," she began, voice warm as honey. "Thanks to your trust, Sage Canyon remains one of Scottsdale's most desirable communities. Tonight, we'll approve the new budget, including the modest dues increase to cover rising maintenance costs." She clicked a remote. A PowerPoint slide appeared. 2025 budget, transparency and trust. I almost laughed. Then she turned to me. "And I'm sure we can all agree, baseless rumors only harm our community spirit." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Let's keep things civil." A few people glanced my way. I kept my face neutral. The meeting droned on. Landscaping contracts, pool maintenance, noise complaints. Then came the vote on the dues increase. "All in favor?" Marjorie asked. Hands rose. "Not all, but enough." "Opposed?" "Only 3 hands. Mine, Mrs. Chen's, and Mr. Patel's." Marjorie's smile widened. "Motion carries. Thank you for your cooperation." That was my cue. I stood slowly. "Before we adjourn, I'd like to share something." Marjorie's eyes narrowed. "This isn't the time for—" "I've been reviewing our financial records," I interrupted, voice calm but carrying. "And I noticed some discrepancies." Murmurs rippled through the room. I walked to the projector, plugged in my tablet, and opened a folder titled Sage Canyon Financial Audit, April 2025. Marjorie lunged for the cord. "You have no right," but it was too late. The first slide appeared, $200,000 in annual dues collected. Only $87,000 accounted for in vendor payments. Gasps filled the room. Next slide, ring footage of Marjorie taking my mail. Next, casino parking logs showing her weekly visits. Next, screenshots of BetMGM transactions totaling $142,000 over 6 months. Next, fake invoices for emergency roof repairs, Mr. Patel's roof, and landscaping upgrades, weeds unchanged. The final slide, a side-by-side comparison of HOA bank statements versus Marjorie's personal gambling deposits. Silence. Thick. Suffocating. Marjorie's face went pale. "This is fabricated. She's hacking my accounts." But then Mrs. Chen stood. "My water bill was $320 last month. I don't even have a sprinkler system," Mr. Patel added. "I never authorized roof repairs. My roof is fine." And then the live stream. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Notifications flooded in. "Is this real? She stole from us? I just checked my bank. $250 extra charged last month?" The feed had gone public, not by me, but by someone in the room who'd shared the link. Within minutes, Yar's Sage Canyon scam trended locally. Marjorie tried to flee, but 2 retired police officers blocked the door. "Sit down, Marjorie," one said gently. "We're calling the sheriff." As sirens wailed in the distance, I gathered my things. No gloating, no tears, just quiet satisfaction, because the real victory wasn't the exposure. It was watching 60 neighbors realize they'd been silenced by politeness, and finally choosing truth over comfort. The next morning, the sheriff's office seized Marjorie's home, but in her safe, they found more than gambling receipts. They found a list of every resident who'd questioned her, and my name was at the top. The sheriff's raid happened at dawn. I watched from my window as black SUVs blocked Marjorie's driveway, deputies moving with quiet precision through her pristine Mediterranean villa. By 8 a.m., news vans lined the street. "HOA president arrested in $200K embezzlement scheme," blared the local channel. But it was the call from Deputy Ruiz that chilled me. "We found something in her safe," he said, voice low. A leather-bound journal. Inside, a list titled Troublemakers. Your name is first, followed by dates, notes about your routines, even your mother's funeral date. My blood ran cold. What kind of notes? "Elena Ruiz, isolated, grieving, no family, easy to discredit. Watch for mail complaints." He paused. "There's more. She'd researched how to file false police reports for harassment, drafted letters to get you evicted for disruptive behavior. She hadn't just stolen money. She'd planned to destroy me." I sat on my couch, hands trembling, staring at the sage bushes outside my window, the same ones Marjorie had once praised as perfectly maintained. Everything she'd said, every smile, every community spirit speech, it was all armor for a predator who saw vulnerability as weakness. By noon, the neighborhood group chat exploded. Mrs. Chen. She tried to get me fined for excessive laundry line use after I asked about my water bill. Mr. Patel. She told the board I was hoarding because I kept spare parts in my garage. Lena. Young mom. She threatened to report me to CPS for unsafe patio setup when I questioned the dues increase. They'd all been targeted, silenced, made to feel unreasonable for asking basic questions. That afternoon, I walked to the clubhouse, now cordoned off with police tape, and found a crowd gathered, not gawking, organizing. Mrs. Chen held a clipboard. "We're compiling a full list of fraudulent charges. Anyone who paid extra, speak up." Mr. Patel stood beside her, laptop open. "I've contacted a forensic accountant, pro bono." And Lena, the young mom, held a sign, "Transparency now." They'd formed a coalition overnight. I joined them without a word. No one thanked me. No one called me a hero. They just handed me a stack of invoices and said, "Start cross-referencing." For 3 days, we worked in shifts at the clubhouse, now unofficially ours. We cataloged every fake charge, every ghost vendor, every midnight casino run. We found $217,000 in total misappropriated funds, and buried in Marjorie's cloud backup, audio recordings of her coaching vendors to lie about services rendered. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. On Thursday, a man in a delivery uniform approached me. "You Elena Ruiz?" he asked, glancing around nervously. I nodded. He handed me a small envelope. "Marjorie used our courier service for confidential documents. Last week, she sent this to a P.O. box in Nevada. I remembered your face from the news." Inside, a printed email chain between Marjorie and a man named Victor Hale, a known gambling debt collector in Las Vegas. "If the HOA money stops, I come to Scottsdale. You know what happens then. I'll find more. Just give me time." She wasn't just gambling. She was in deep with dangerous people. I took it straight to Deputy Ruiz. By Friday, Victor Hale was in federal custody for interstate extortion. Marjorie's bail was revoked, but the victory felt hollow, because I couldn't shake the image of that journal. My name at the top, my grief weaponized against me. That night, I sat on my porch, staring at the stars, when Mrs. Chen appeared with 2 mugs of tea. "She thought silence meant weakness," she said, handing me a cup. "But you taught us it meant observation." Mr. Patel joined us, holding printouts. The forensic accountant confirmed it. Every dollar can be recovered. The state's filing a civil suit. Lena arrived last, holding her toddler's hand. "The kids are calling you the quiet guardian," she said with a soft smile. "Says you protected the whole neighborhood without saying a word." I looked at them, my neighbors, my unlikely allies, and finally understood. Marjorie had underestimated us all. She thought retirees were complacent, young parents too busy, quiet women too timid. But community isn't built on noise. It's built on noticing, on caring enough to ask, "Does this feel right?" The next morning, I received an official letter. The HOA board was dissolved. A new resident-elected council would take over, with me as interim treasurer. I almost refused, but then I remembered Marjorie's journal, her belief that I was easy to discredit. So I accepted, not for power, but to prove that the quiet ones were the ones who keep watch. And we never forget. 6 6 months later, as I presented the first transparent HOA budget to a packed clubhouse, a courier delivered a package from Marjorie's prison cell. Inside, a single white rose and a note that read, "You were never quiet. You were listening." True justice wasn't her prison sentence. It was building a community where no one could steal from the vulnerable again. The new HOA budget meeting was held on a warm September evening. The same clubhouse, the same folding chairs, but everything else had changed. No crystal glasses, no pastel name cards, just a projector, a whiteboard, and 60 residents who finally felt seen. I stood at the front, not as a victim, not as a vigilante, but as interim treasurer, a role I'd accepted not for power, but for protection. On the screen behind me, a clean, color-coded spreadsheet showing every dollar collected, every vendor paid, every reserve fund balance. All public, all real-time accessible via a secure portal. "This is your money," I said, voice steady. "Not mine, not anyone's to hide." Applause rippled through the room. Not loud, but firm. The kind that comes from relief, not performance. As I walked through line items, landscaping, actual bids, not inflated invoices, pool maintenance, monthly reports uploaded weekly, emergency fund, fully funded, no diversions. I saw something I'd never seen before. Neighbors making eye contact, asking questions, taking notes. This was what Marjorie had feared most. An informed community. After the meeting, Mrs. Chen handed me a small envelope. "From the mailroom," she said, eyebrows raised. My breath caught. For a split second, I braced for another threat. But inside was a plain white envelope with no return address, just my name in neat block letters, postmarked from Perryville Women's Prison. I opened it slowly. A single white rose pressed between wax paper, and a note. "You were never quiet. You were listening. MW. No excuses, no justifications, just acknowledgement." I stared at the words, the simplicity of them hitting harder than any apology. She'd spent years believing silence meant weakness, but in prison, stripped of her curated image, she'd finally understood. The quiet ones aren't passive, they're observant. And observation is the first step toward justice. I didn't keep the rose, didn't frame the note. I placed both in the community archive box we'd started, a record of what we'd survived, so we'd never forget. Over the next month, the changes took root. We elected a new board, diverse, transparent, with term limits. Every vendor contract required 3 resident signatures. Monthly financials were emailed to all households by the 5th. And we created a watchdog committee. Volunteers who reviewed invoices and flagged discrepancies. I stepped down as treasurer after 3 months. Passed the role to Mr. Patel, who ran it like the engineer he was. Precise, fair, relentless. But my real work began elsewhere. I started hosting digital literacy for seniors workshops at the clubhouse, teaching neighbors how to spot fake invoices, verify contractor licenses, and use smart home tech safely. Mrs. Chen became my co-host. Lena handled social media outreach. Even teenagers volunteered to help grandparents set up fraud alerts. One afternoon, as we taught a group how to read bank statements, a woman named Doris pulled me aside. "Before you came along," she whispered, "I thought asking questions made me difficult. Now I know it makes me responsible." That was the true victory. Not Marjorie's prison sentence. 18 months for embezzlement and fraud. Not the $217,000 recovered. Not even the viral news coverage. It was this, a community that no longer apologized for caring. 6 months later, I received a letter from the Arizona Department of Real Estate. They'd used our case as a model for new HOA transparency laws statewide. My testimony, along with Mrs. Chen's and Mr. Patel's, had helped draft legislation requiring third-party financial audits for all communities over 50 units. I framed the letter, not for pride. As a reminder, one quiet voice, amplified by many, can change systems. On the anniversary of the raid, the neighborhood threw a real community day. No wine tastings, no performative charity, just potluck tables, kids playing in the grass, and a banner that read, "Transparency, Perfection." As I sat on the patio with Mrs. Chen sipping iced tea, she nudged me. "You know what's funny? I used to think you were aloof. Now I know you were just waiting." I smiled. For what? For us to be ready to listen. And maybe that was it. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet act of holding space until others find their voice. That night, I checked my Ring doorbell feed. Not out of fear, but habit. The footage showed neighbors walking dogs, kids chasing fireflies, Mr. Patel watering his roses. Ordinary, safe hours. No threats, no secrets, just light. And for the first time since my mother died, I didn't feel alone in it. Because the greatest revenge against those who exploit the quiet isn't destruction. It's building a world where silence is respected, not as emptiness, but as the space where truth gathers before it speaks. Justice wasn't Marjorie's prison sentence or the recovered funds. It was the day 60 neighbors stopped apologizing for asking questions and started demanding receipts. True power isn't loud. It's the quiet certainty that you belong, and your voice matters. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe I'm not. What would you have done?